I'm sure you've all had the experience of watching a Netflix series and maybe you're 6 or 7 episodes in. Somebody comes in, your wife, your husband, your friend, whatever, and sits down, watches for a few minutes, and then starts asking questions. Why did this happen? Wait, I don't understand. What's going on over here? Why did she say this? And I would love to discuss this with you, but you got to go back from the beginning and watch all the episodes because we're in the middle of a story over here. Our lives are in the middle of a story. Sometimes we have questions. Why did this happen? Why did I personally have to experience this difficulty? Why did the world have to go through such tragedy? What's going on? I don't understand. And the answer is, of course we don't understand, because we're right in the middle. We think that we have perspective, but we have a very narrow, limited perspective. The story of Joseph, which is concluded in this week's Torah portion, teaches us that, think about the story of Joseph. We all know the story. His life was tragic. He was a young child. He was taken by his brothers. He was sold into Egypt. He didn't know what was happening. He was put into a dungeon. His life was so hard. And think about for his parents that their beautiful child was gone. They thought he had been killed, and they didn't know. And 22 years went by until what we read about in this week's Torah portion, the reunion between Jacob and his son Yosef. And when Jacob sees his son Joseph for the first time, you know what he does? He doesn't hug him. He doesn't start crying. He puts his hands over his eyes and he says the words, Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad, which is the ultimate statement of Jewish belief. God is one. God is one when things are going well. God is one when things are challenging and we don't understand what's happening. It's all one God. It's a loving God. It's a God that cares for us, that has an ultimate goal for our lives, for the world, for everything in it. And that's the story of Joseph. And that's what Jacob realizes at that moment. After 22 years, all of a sudden he understands what's happened and how Hashem has orchestrated this entire series of events to work out so that the Jewish people, the children of Jacob, can survive during the famine and to continue the story and the mission of the Jewish people and the building of Am Yisrael. But in the middle, forget about it. Tragic, inexplicable. How is this possible? How can this child be sold into slavery? Or in our cases, how can this person be experiencing this illness? Why is this terrible thing happening to this wonderful person? Why am I experiencing such difficulty and tragedy in my own life? Why is the world going through so much? And we learn from Joseph and we learn from Jacob in this week's Torah portion, and the reunion, the moment when it all became clear that sometimes we just have to put our hands over our eyes and say, Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why this is happening. But you know what I do know? I know that Hashem, you are filled with love and that you have a purpose in mind and that everything that's happening is happening for the good and happening for an ultimate conclusion that's going to be for my benefit and for the benefit of the whole world. And that's a very powerful message that we need to remember, take from this story and remember. And it's a great discussion topic for tonight at your Shabbat table. Can you remember a time in your life when in the middle of a story, in the middle of a situation, you thought all hope was lost, only to find out at the end that it could have been the best thing that ever happened to you? Discuss that and enjoy the discussion, and let's all have a wonderful Shabbos. Wishing you all a Shabbat Shalom from Yerushalayim.